What do you plan on doing after school? What do you want to become when you're older? If you could be anything in your life, what would it be? What's your dream job? We've all had these thrown at us in life. The great question, asking what we choose to dedicate the rest of our lives to. For some people, answering this question is easy. They know what they want to pursue in their life and they set out to go do it. But then there are others who aren't so sure. For these types of people, the question can bring a wave of uncertainty, of anxiety. This simple question, it encompasses the rest of their lives. It encompasses who they'll eventually become and how others will define them. This makes answering the question seem almost impossible. I was one of these types of people who always struggled with finding an answer. And to be honest, I probably still am. But what I've learned so far is that choosing a single path in life and sacrificing everything else, it isn't necessarily what we always need to do. So this is my personal answer to the great question based on my short life story so far. Remember back in junior school, 10 o'clock, the bell went, break time. Oh, the best part of the day, don't even deny it. We went outside, we got out our lunch boxes, and the conversations began. Now, besides the occasional discussion on whether trading a chocolate muffin for a ham and cheese sandwich was a worthy trade, these conversations were never too intellectually stimulating. But then a specific question, which seemed like nothing at the time, it sometimes crept its way into our playground talk. What do you want to be when you grow up? For some kids, they knew exactly what they wanted to be, and answering this was plain and simple. But for others, there wasn't really a proper answer. And to be fair, a proper answer wasn't needed back then anyway. I mean, adult life, it was still ages away, and there were more important things to think about, like this muffin for a sandwich trade. I was a mixture of these two types of kids. It seemed like every month I had a new plan of what I wanted to be, and I told everyone about it, but these ideas never stuck around for long enough. My life completely changed when I discovered a passion for music. I remember the first time I ever picked up my dad's old guitar. The feeling of the instrument in my hands, alongside the screaming cheers coming from my mom as the makeshift crowd, it gave me feelings I hadn't quite felt with anything else. It wasn't one of those classic moments you hear where, I realized right then and there that music was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it was significant enough. Significant enough for music to soon become my greatest involvement in primary school. Across my extended family, I became known as the musician, the boy who played lots of instruments and who was in all the school bands. Now that I had this new identity, the answer to the great question of what we wanted to be when we grew up, it suddenly became simple for me. Well, when I grow up, I want to be a famous musician. It seemed like I'd finally found my calling in life. But coming from an extended family of lawyers, scientists, and successful business people, my idea was often met with the counter questions. Do you realize how difficult it is to make a living off music? Are you sure you don't want to consider a safer career path? These questions were some of my first proper tastes of the real world, in which childhood dreams couldn't always translate into reality. They taught me that following your passion, it wasn't actually that simple. Well, that's at least what we had all been taught. When I got to high school, it brought with it a different story. Adult life was still far, but it was getting a lot closer now. And the answer to the great question of what we wanted to be when we were older and out of school, it was becoming more and more important. Still being unsure of what else I would do in life besides maybe music, I decided to ignore the question and just go on with my school years. Music was still important, yes, but I formed other goals that took up my time. I wanted amazing grades. I wanted to be a good sportsman. I wanted to be in leadership positions. I wanted to make my family proud. Doing all of that, it allowed me to forget about the scary future and just focus on the present. The great question had been locked up in a box somewhere at the back of my mind, and I didn't want to confront it. I couldn't. When I reached the end of my grade 11 year, I'd achieved most of the things I wanted to. Things were going smoothly. Everything was going to plan. Until that great question came back into our lives, and the box in the back of my mind, it was forced to reopen. This time, we didn't just need to give an answer to what we wanted to do after school. We needed to take action on it. Would we be attending university after matric? And if so, what would we apply for to study? And where would we go? I'd spent my entire high school career trying to do well in all areas of school. Now, while this was good in the sense that I now had many sort of options of what I could do, what I could apply for, it hadn't helped me in choosing a final path like what was expected of us. I'd been so caught up in doing well in all areas of school, which was seen as most important, that I had nearly forgotten what had been most important in my life: music. So I considered studying a degree in music. Hey, perhaps it really was my calling, what I should dedicate the rest of my life to. But as we'd clearly all been taught, the decision wasn't that simple. Did I really want to formally choose a career path with such a low chance of success? One in which few are successful while the rest are left having to work other jobs just to keep themselves going. It seemed like I would never come to a decision until I realized that I couldn't possibly choose just one path like what was expected of us. Music was my passion and, I wanted to pursue it, but I needed a plan B in case this failed. And so, having left applications like to the last minute, I ended up applying for a Bachelor of Business Science at the University of Cape Town. I made myself the promise that I would work hard in my degree, but also spend time in developing a music career. It was about having balance in my love, my passion for music, alongside a safer, more stable career path. That marked the beginning of where I am now. Since moving to Cape Town and beginning my degree a few years back, my life became a bit different. Now, this wasn't just from things like experiencing the crazy world of university partying. It was also because music had gained a new role in my life. It was a lot more serious now. I'd begun my final stage before adulthood, and I needed a sense of security for my future. This all began when I formed a band with a group of guys in my university residence. This was when it all changed for me. Like anyone else, we started out small, right? We wrote and released some music. We played some shows around Cape Town and Stellenbosch. As time progressed, we played more shows, eventually landing much bigger ones. We began sharing stages with some of the music heroes I had growing up, like Matthew Mole and Prime Circle, the Kiffness. Our music, it charted on radio. On streaming platforms, we began to accumulate tens of thousands of plays. We became so famous that I was constantly chased in the streets by hundreds of screaming fans whenever I went out into public. Yeah, just kidding. That last part didn't happen yet. In all of this, it gave my life a greater purpose, like a greater sense of meaning. It brought me back to that first ever moment of playing my dad's old guitar. I was doing what I'd always loved. I was now a musician in the real world. So as I sit here today, my band Flow has listeners in over 75 different countries, spanning nearly every single continent. But the thing is, in saying that, it's not like we're famous rock stars or anything. I mean, we don't have a music label, we don't have a publicist, and I'm sure most of you listening haven't even heard of us before. We're just some small band from Cape Town. What I think is so amazing about this is it shows the changing planet we're in and the opportunities it's starting to give us. There's no doubt that life is changing on a daily basis, right? New ideas, new ways of thinking, new technology. I mean, even this global pandemic we're in, it means that life and the way it works, it's constantly shifting. Now, this can be scary at times, yeah, but it also brings with it opportunities which were never available to previous generations. It's slowly becoming a reality that pursuing your passion, it doesn't necessarily mean having to give up everything else like what was expected in the past. Nowadays, almost everyone has access to things like social media to broadcast themselves, to share their artworks, to distribute their music, to advertise their new business product. I mean, the list is endless. Life, it's taken this new form where you work hard on your ambition, you put out content on the internet, and then you sit back and watch as you're exposed to people from across the globe at all hours of the day and of the night. I guess that's sort of what's happening to us as a band. Just having access to a device and internet connection, it's changed life in ways we didn't even think possible. For example, that person who's studying medicine now, who always dreamt of having their own talk show when they were younger, they can now do this by starting an online podcast in their free time. That real estate agent who dreamt of writing a best-selling novel when they were a teen, they can now do this by writing and publishing an online ebook and using the internet to sell it and to promote it. I mean, it's even becoming possible for a video of you dancing alone in your room to Jason Derulo to go viral on the social media platform TikTok, accumulating thousands, I mean, literally sometimes even millions of views. It's a good idea, actually. I should give that a go. I mean, look, obviously all of this now means it's so much more difficult than before to sort of gain success, to break through all the noise going on. But the overall point still remains. This changing planet, it means something. No longer do we necessarily need to give up on what we wanted to since we were young. No longer do we need to sort of follow one path and sacrifice everything else because that's just what's expected of us. I mean, ultimately, what this changing planet is slowly allowing us to do is refrain from sacrificing one path for another. Perhaps we might no longer need to separate our plan A from our plan B, like what I'm doing with music and my business degree. Maybe it can just now become one plan altogether. So, in saying all this, is there maybe an answer to the great question? An answer to what we should dedicate the rest of our lives to? In some ways, I believe there's, as cliche and as cheesy as it may sound, we should do what makes us happy, what makes us feel alive, whether that's one path or two paths or multiple paths, all entangling at different points in our life, which we didn't even plan on. I mean, it doesn't matter. The changing planet, it's now giving us this opportunity. So we're in this world where everything's constantly changing, right? But the thing is, we don't actually need to think about changing ourselves. We can and we should do whatever it is that gives us meaning. So that's my answer. That's my personal answer to the great question. Do you think I'm right?